Welcome to Dignified Family Transitions with Lilie the Lawyer.
Welcome to Dignified Family Transitions with Lilie the Lawyer. Lilie McRoberts is a Minnesota family law attorney and mediator who helps individuals and families navigate divorce and custody matters with a focus on problem solving, not conflict, and practical, respectful solutions. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about a question many people have when considering mediation. Do you need a lawyer during the process? Miss Lilie, my dear, how are you?
Doing great. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So Lilie, if a couple, chooses the divorce mediation, does that mean they don't need lawyers in your opinion?
It doesn't necessarily mean that they need lawyers or they don't need lawyers. It's completely optional. It's one of the great things about mediation is it really can be designed however you want it to look. One thing that I do think is if one party is going to be having a lawyer, it might be wise to have another lawyer, have a lawyer for the other party. And that's just because you're going to, all the mediators that we have in Minnesota, I think, do a phenomenal job of making sure that they truly are neutral, not just pay lip service to being neutral, but they truly dedicate themselves to being neutral, not playing favoritism to either party. Obviously, there's always going to be biases, but I think it's more for the comfort of the party, where if you see that your ex has a lawyer present, you might feel a little bit more comfortable finding a lawyer. And even if you want to just find a lawyer just to represent you at that mediation, lots of lawyers offer what's called unbundled services, where you can just talk to them about what you want them to represent you for, just for an hour for mediation or 3 hours for mediation, and then be done. So that's always an option, but you absolutely don't need to have a lawyer present. Just keep in mind that mediator is neutral. So that mediator cannot give you any legal advice. If you're going to go to mediation without a lawyer, it's wise to familiarize yourself with the basics of the materials that are available in Minnesota courts regarding divorce. Read through their frequently asked questions, a little bit about like the information sheet and things like that, so that you're aware what to expect and you have a little bit of a sense of what your rights are if you go without a lawyer.
So what's the difference between the role of a mediator and the role of an attorney?
Sure. So in mediation, you've got, for family law mediation, you have a qualified neutral mediator who is going to be neutral and is not going to be taking sides. The mediator's role is only to be there to be kind of like a scrivener, to write things down when you come to an agreement, and to talk the different issues that commonly appear in divorce decrees. Make sure that you are on track to resolving some of those issues. A lot of times, before you go to mediation, if you don't have lawyers, a lot of times you'll have gone to what's called an informal case management conference. Or sorry, strike that, an initial case management conference. So you'll have already gone to the initial case management conference, and the judge will have issued an order after that initial case management conference that says, go to mediation and specifically resolve these issues. Here's a list of what you agree on. Here's a list of what you don't agree on. Talk to the mediator, find out what your common ground is on those, and maybe you'll become able to come to a resolution. So the mediator is there to follow that judge's order to talk you through those issues. Now, your lawyers, each of you may have your own lawyers. The lawyers are going to be there to make sure that you're aware of what your rights are, make sure that you know what your options are, give you their legal opinion on the strength of your case if you were to take a hard line on a particular issue. And the lawyer is your advocate and opposing counsel is your ex's advocate. They can give you legal advice. The mediator cannot give you legal advice. So those are the kind of the differences between those.
So what about this? Are there situations where mediation may not be enough, on its own?
Yeah, unfortunately, there are situations where mediation might not be enough to get to the resolution. The judge will have given you a list of items that you you are not in agreement on, and will say, go forth and mediate. And, the mediators are not going to push necessarily for an agreement. The mediators really, they shouldn't be pushing you for an agreement. There shouldn't be oh, I've successfully resolved, 95% of my
Yep.
mediation cases,
Yep.
because that's just not what it's about. And a lot of times keep in mind that it takes more than one mediation session to kind of resolve all of the issues. But there are going to be times where, so mediation is really about finding out the why behind the position that your opposing party has. So your opposing party is going to have, a set of things that they would like to see the divorce decree contain. And some of those things are going to be anathema sometimes to what you may want to see the decree contain. And the mediation then is going to be, the goal should be, well, why is it that they have that hard line? And hopefully they're also wondering, well, why is it that the other person has that hard line? But sometimes you're not going to get to all the different whys. Sometimes emotions are going to get caught up in the middle, which is, you should be able to experience those emotions. But sometimes the parties are going to stay in their animal brain. And sometimes, and oftentimes, the mediation will, it's like raising kids. You do the things that you need to do to raise the kids and tell them the same things over and over and over again. And then if you are lucky enough to have adult kids like me, you realize that a lot of it's stuck in the end. With mediation, the mediator is going to, get you thinking about the things that you need to be thinking about, but it takes time. So sometimes mediation doesn't resolve it right away. Sometimes mediation never resolves it. And then in those cases, you're going to end up in a trial where you will have the fact finder, who's the judge in Minnesota, tell you what the resolution is going to be for the things that you weren't able to resolve.
So what about this? Can each person, consult with their own attorney while still working through the mediation together? Does that ruffle any feathers, or is that frowned upon?
Yeah. So yes, a lot of times mediation is done via Zoom these days, which actually makes it a lot easier.
Wow.
Sometimes you have mediation where the attorney and the mediator, or the attorney and their client, are in completely different states or different rooms or whatever. The mediator will create breakout rooms and allow the client and their attorney to consult with each other. And a lot of times you'll have the client and the attorney in the same room, and then connecting via Zoom to the other parties. The client can always consult with their attorney, and they should consult with their attorney if there's anything that just doesn't feel right. If you're getting an icky feeling about one of the terms that's coming out. I've been in mediation sessions with clients, and I could tell that, like, they would say things like, "Oh, that's fine," or "Yeah, I guess," or, and I mean. And I just immediately have to stop and say, let's talk, because either something isn't making sense, or, I mean, and sometimes they're making concessions and they're just not happy about them, but that doesn't mean that they understand that that's just what they're going to do. But yeah, there's definitely times where it's best to speak with your lawyer, and they can absolutely consult with you. In fact, always err on the side of talking to your lawyer. If it means just, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt right here, I need to talk to my lawyer, say it. And everyone will, well, I mean, the opposing party may or may not like it, but the mediator will absolutely make that possible for you.
So what are some signs that someone should get that legal advice before agreeing to any kind of settlement?
Well, I mean, I'm very much a left brain person, and I've never liked the idea of go with your gut, because to me, that's the organ that digests food. But as I get older, I just turned 50. As I get older, I start recognizing the fact that, you need to listen. You need to be left and right brain, and you need to recognize when your body is tensing up and your body is telling you that something is wrong, and you're getting that icky feeling, and you don't necessarily need to react right away. Take a beat. When I mediate, I tell the people I tell my clients when I'm mediating, let's always know that you can call timeout. There's unlimited amounts of timeout. Take a beat, stop, ask to talk to your lawyer, or if you don't have a lawyer, just ask if you can have a break. The one thing that's hard with mediation is that it's supposed to be completely confidential, and it should be completely confidential, but sometimes that's hard because you don't necessarily have support systems with you. And so it's going to be hard for you to actually talk to anyone if you don't have a lawyer. But if you're getting a bad feeling, then you should definitely take a moment and think about it. It's always a great thing when people are truly coming together and making concessions, or even not even making concessions, but realizing that there isn't anything that they're disagreeing. They have common ground. So I like to see when people come to an agreement, but if it's not actually the agreement that they think that it is, then that's a problem. So you have to make sure that you understand it. If there's something in there that's confusing, you ask, what does physical custody mean? And someone explains it to you, and then it doesn't make sense. And then you ask again and someone explains it to you, and it still doesn't make sense. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, okay, I don't really understand what this means. Well, frankly, not a lot of people do understand what physical custody means anymore in Minnesota, but that's not a good example. But if you don't understand what you're signing, don't sign it. You can always go to mediation on your own, be presented with a mediated settlement agreement, say, can I take this to my attorney, and hire an attorney just for the purposes of reviewing that mediated settlement agreement. And then you can maybe feel comfortable signing it, because they'll tell you the pros and cons and what every single thing means and what the implications will be for your rights and what may happen down the road if you sign it. And that will make that agreement even more powerful, because you'll understand it. So I would just take my time and listen to your gut.
That's a good segue into this next question. Does involving these attorneys in mediation make the process more adversarial?
Oh, well, I mean, it depends on the lawyer, I'm sorry to say. I think that the Minnesota Bar Association and the family law section is an incredible bunch of attorneys. Family law practice is challenging because you're dealing with, I mean, in most cases, the most difficult thing that a person's going through. As a prosecutor, when I was a prosecutor, I used to tell myself, I have to remember that I'm getting these people on their most difficult day, like their worst day. I have to remember that when I'm putting together my proposed plea offers. But then I started doing family law, and I realized, actually, I think that it might be worse for people going through family law. So I think that family law attorneys have a tremendous challenge, and they're dealing with really difficult emotions. Good attorneys, and I think that Minnesota family law attorneys are fantastic for the most part. Good attorneys are going to make sure that their clients are the ones that are making the decisions, not them. When it comes to settlement, there are some things that attorneys should be are supposed to make the decisions on their own, but when it comes to presenting plea offers, it's supposed to be the client that makes those decisions. But the attorney needs to make sure that the client is aware of what their options are, what their rights are, and what the consequences are of their decisions. Now, I think having attorneys in the mediation is going to make it less adversarial the vast majority of the time, because an attorney can take a moment and talk to the client and explain that what's being proposed is not outrageous, if it isn't outrageous. And also, the attorney is going to have a better idea of what would happen at trial if it went to trial, and explain to someone, well, this is probably the best you're going to get, even if it went to trial, and you will save a whole lot of heartache and time and money. So I think that for the most part, it can be less adversarial, but you also have people out there that I'm going to get an attorney and I'm going to get a bulldog, which that's not me, by the way. I'm going to get a bulldog and I'm going to find an attorney that's going to get me way more, and I'm going to break you. And that's, I just don't think that that's the right way to look at things. I think that that person's going to be adversarial no matter what. But I also think that there's ways that client can be redirected to, that's not really what's best for everybody. And then even that client can be brought down and recognize that that's not good for anybody. And also, there are very few attorneys out there, I think, in Minnesota that are going to compromise their code of ethics to bring anything about what the Minnesota law requires, which is an equitable division of the assets. That's what the judges are going to be looking for. So I really don't think that it has to be as adversarial. And I really do think that the vast majority of the time, the attorneys are going to make it less adversarial.
How can someone decide what level of legal support makes sense for their situation, Ms. Lilie?
Oh, first of all, look at what resources are available to you. It's amazing how many resources are available to you without even an attorney. Go to minnesotacourts.com, look at the self-help page under divorce, or family law, custody and parenting time if you're not married. Review there's a section that actually tells you what the law is. Now, it can't give you legal advice, and I wouldn't be able to give you legal advice in this podcast. It would be impossible for me to do so because I don't know what your circumstances are. So I wouldn't be able to give you legal advice even if I tried, but and neither can the self-help page. All it does is it tells you what the law is. It's up to you as to how you understand how that law applies to your situation. But at least if you read the law and you have familiarized yourself with the terms, then you can go into mediation without an attorney and at least know what they're talking about. After you read through those materials, if you're like, gosh, this just does not make sense. If your gut, if you will, is telling you, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to put myself through this. Listen to yourself and respect that this may be the one thing that you don't necessarily have to do all on your own. You can still be independent and ask for help. In fact, the best people know when they should be asking for help. And then you can just find an attorney that maybe only represents you at that mediation, or you can find an attorney that will just do it for you because this is one of the most difficult parts of your life, and maybe save your energy for something different. But I think that no matter what, go ahead and look at that self-help page and see what's available and understand the terms. Because even if you get a lawyer, you don't want to spend a lot of your time having the lawyer just educating you on terms that you maybe could have looked up on your own. So that's what I would say is figure out what's out there, and then figure out what's right for you. And there's luckily lots of services in between, running the gamut from no legal representation at all. I did everything to I have the attorney doing everything for me. So.
That's good stuff.
Although you can't have the attorney you're going to have to get your financial statements and stuff. So there's always some work for you to do.
That's good stuff, Ms. Lilie. Thank you so much for your time and your insight.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
It's good stuff. That's it for today's episode of Dignified Family Transitions with Lilie the Lawyer. If you're considering divorce mediation in Minnesota and have questions about whether you need legal representation during that process, you can learn more about Lilie McRoberts and her work at minnesotasfamilyattorney.com. Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to like, subscribe to the show, and share this episode with someone who might need it. And we'll see you all next time.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.